Hey guys, Ian here from redlinestands.com. I wanted to do a quick video for you guys today and just share with you some tips and tricks that I have learned over the years that will get a Siphon sandblast cabinet working properly and keep it working properly. We sell a lot of Siphon sandblast cabinets at redlinestands.com, and frankly, they're pretty finicky creatures. There's a lot of things that can go wrong that will make them not work right. So I want to kind of educate you guys and share some of the things that I have learned over the years that will save you some frustration and get you going. The three most common types of blasting cabinets are pressure pot, gravity feed, and siphon. This video is really going to be aimed at siphon feed cabinets, but that's not to say that a lot of what you're about to learn is actually going to apply to all three. I personally use an REPP70 pressure pot cabinet here at my home shop. You can easily tell if you've got a pressure pot cabinet because naturally there's going to be a pressure vessel down below where all of the media goes in the vessel. It's pressurized with air and then shot out under great pressure. We're going to address very, very briefly at the end of this video the gravity feed cabinets. We only offer one of those at Redline, which is an RE48. We'll get to that here in a minute. So what makes a cabinet a siphon feed cabinet? Well, it all comes down to that you have a gun that basically produces a suction, if you will, through a Venturi effect, and then you've got a pickup tube that goes down into the base of your cabinet. Let's talk about it. Okay, so let's get down to the meat and taters of this video. Why will siphon sandblast cabinets not work properly? Probably the best reason, most common thing we see out there, the nozzle is stopped up. You can see the media there in the end of that nozzle. It should be open just like this one right here. You can see right through it. It stands to reason that whoever was using this nozzle right here probably needed a bigger nozzle and the media would flow right through it. Look, I can't even blow it through. It doesn't work. It also stands to reason that when you switch out that smaller nozzle to a bigger nozzle, like here I have a 5 and a 7 millimeter nozzle, that you're opening up the airflow there. You're going to need more airflow for that larger nozzle. That's more CFM, more cubic feet per minute. If CFM and PSI is Spanish to you and you don't speak Spanish, I'm going to put a link in the end of this video to another video that I did where we discuss in pretty good detail the relationship of sandblast cabinets as well as most air tools to CFM and PSI, what it all means and kind of how to go about making sure that you're sizing properly your air compressor to your nozzles and so forth. If you'll check out any of the blast cabinets on our website and scroll down to the specs tab, you'll notice that we give you the minimum CFM rating in order to operate that cabinet continuously. If you're having problems getting the thing to flow media and stay flowing media, you may want to check the CFM rating of your air compressor and entertain the possibility that perhaps you don't actually have a big enough air compressor to operate that blast cabinet. In the event that your air compressor is not going to let you run a bigger nozzle, you need to consider the idea that perhaps you need a smaller media. The media has got to be sized appropriately for the nozzle, and I'll show you what I mean here. Suppose for a minute that we take this small nozzle right here that's a number 4 nozzle, and we try and flow some of this crushed walnut through it. The crushed walnut is a great big size media, and you can see there that it just is not going to go through the nozzle. However, I can put all of the little fine 10X media that I want through this little 4 millimeter nozzle all day long. You know, on the flip side, a great big 7 millimeter nozzle is going to be able to flow that crushed walnut right through it with no problem. So a good rule of thumb is that the size of the hole in your nozzle needs to be about 4 times larger than the size of your media. So at the end of the day, you want to try and kind of, you know, tailor the size of your nozzle to your media. If you don't do that, it's not going to flow properly. Probably the biggest adversary to a media blast cabinet is moisture. Notice how this media right here, I've added just a little bit of water to it, and what does it do? Of course, it clumps up like you're trying to build a sandcastle at the beach. That is not going to flow through that nozzle no matter how bad you want it to. It's not going to flow through there. Let me show you how I solved that problem here at my home shop. Okay, so I'm going to assume that this goes without saying. The last thing you would want to do is pressure wash your workpiece in the driveway, bring it right inside, put it into your media blast cabinet, and introduce all of that water into your media without letting it dry. Don't do that. What I like to do to keep the media dry here at my shop at home is I run an inline water separator, and periodically I'll come out here and just drain it. It's also worth mentioning it's a really good idea to periodically drain your air compressor. Got a lot of water in there. For my next tip, what we've got here is all the components of a Siphon sandblast cabinet that's just been taken outside of the cabinet for the ease of this video. We've got our media pickup tube, which feeds a clear piece of hose that comes up into the the bottom side of our gun here. Coming in the back side is our air input, which in this case is operated by foot pedal. Now, one of the things that's real common that will stop this system up and stop you from being able to media blast, suppose for a minute that you're doing a rusted old part, kind of like what I've got here off of my 67 Nova. You're blasting away at this rusted old part, and one of those little pieces of debris comes off of your old part. It goes down into the bottom, the big funnel of your blast cabinet. It gets picked up by your pickup tube, and it jams up the system. Most of the time, it's going to jam up your system at your nozzle that's right inside of your gun right there. However, it can do it in a number of places. Now, at this point, you could pull all of this stuff out of your blast cabinet and proceed to disconnect everything and try and find that little tiny piece of trash. Or I got a quick tip for you that may help. So watch this. I'll put my gloves on here. And what I recommend considering to do is to reverse pressurize the system so that instead of your media flowing out here, instead of your air flowing out here, it then goes back down in reverse. Now, so what you would want to do here is you basically just take your glove and put it over the end of your gun so that the media can't come out. And at that point, you want to pressurize it. If you had a trigger-operated gun, like this one right here, all you would do is just sit there and squeeze the trigger. However, in this case, this is a foot-operated unit, so if you'll watch what happens here, as I push on this foot pedal, it will reverse pressurize everything, and it will blow out whatever is inside of this pickup tube, hopefully dislodging your piece of trash and saving you from having to go taking everything apart trying to find that one little tiny piece that's stuck in there. Watch what happens. And so it starts shooting air out of our pickup tube. Okay, so in all honesty, obviously what I just showed you is really just a Band-Aid. At some point, that little piece of trash we're discussing is going to go all the way around, work itself right back to the same location and stop the system up again. In order to stop that from happening over and over again, years ago, I built myself this little filter out of just some wire screen I picked up from Home Depot, a few pieces of wood and some staples. And today, when the media gets really good and dirty, I've just made it a point to just start sifting it to get rid of all the trash, and it does a great job of cleaning the media. My next tip is to consider adjusting the jet in your gun. Now, some guns like this one right here are not adjustable, so it is what it is. However, with this foot-operated gun here, which you know is foot-operated because it has no trigger to operate it, you've got a jet here that goes up into the back of this gun, and you can actually adjust the depth of this jet in the gun so that it's either more shallow, or deeper or whatnot, and change the Venturi effect inside the gun. So consider giving this jet an adjustment, and you may find that it draws media better. Another common reason that your Siphon media cabinet won't draw media up through the tube and spray it out of the gun is actually that your pickup tube is malfunctioning. And let me explain what you've got here. So your pickup tube is actually two tubes. The first one right here is responsible for picking up media and sending it up to the gun. However, the second tube is responsible for introducing air down here at the inlet. Notice down here on this end how there's a big open hole right there, right? You see that? Down here on this end, you find another hole, and that hole is actually drilled through and connected to the second tube, but does not come out the front side. So the purpose of this is to allow air to come in this hole, pass between those two tubes, and allow air and media to mix in this tube and ultimately be able to be sucked up through this tube and up to the gun. Now, it's worth mentioning that if you ran off and you put way too much media in your blast cabinet and you were to cover up this hole right here and you had the media all the way up to here, it's not going to be able to draw any air into this air pickup tube, and it's not going to work. It also stands to reason it is possible some sort of a piece of debris or maybe a bunch of media or something like that could get drawn into your air pickup tube and stop up the connection between the two right here. I have seen cases in the past where you needed to remove this from the cabinet and use like a shop vac to suck everything out of this tube. It's rare, but it can happen. While we're on the topic of too much media in your cabinet, I want to show you something. Notice here on my cabinet at home how I've got 3 bags of 10X across the back. That's fine, medium, and coarse, and as I'm doing some blasting, based on whether I want it more or less coarse, I'll reach back there, grab one of those bags, and kind of jiggle some media out of it. The reason I don't run off and just pour a whole bunch of media into the cabinet and fill it up down below in the hopper is because blasting media operates really the same way that water does, in that a whole bunch of media stacked on top of itself creates pressure. It's the exact same kind of thing as when you go swimming, you dive down in the bottom of the pool, you feel that pressure on your ears. The same thing happens with media, and I've found over the years that if you have too much media in your cabinet, it builds up pressure down at the bottom and it doesn't like to flow as well. So I like to only run however much media is actually necessary to keep it flowing. I don't add any more than is necessary. I want to take this opportunity to tell you that the length of the hose matters. You'll notice that I'm only running about maybe 5 feet or so of this clear hose. The reason for that is because if you're using a great big humongous hose like this right here, you're greatly increasing the amount of work that the gun has to do in order to successfully draw the media up to the gun. Not just that, I've seen a lot of customers over the years that aren't getting any of the media flowing out of the gun, and the simplest reason in the world, they don't even realize it. The hose is kinked over at the edge of the cabinet. Keep an eye out for that. I said at the beginning of this video we would have a look at gravity feed blast cabinets, and so what we've got here is a metering valve from an all-source model 41500 blast cabinet. We have these on our website. If we'll have a look at the site and we scroll down and we have a look at the bottom of that blast cabinet, you're going to find this valve right here. So basically the way that it operates is the media is funneled into the hole that you see right here, and it is sucked out of that hole you see there via the siphon gun. Here's the tricky thing about these gravity feed cabinets. Notice how there's a bolt right there on the top of it with a hole, goes through on both sides. The purpose of that bolt is that you can screw it in or out and open or close that hole, allowing more or less air inside of your metering valve that then mixes with your media and gets sucked up through your gun. So if your cabinet's not working quite like you hope it would and isn't really flowing media all that well, considering adjusting that valve and adjusting the amount of air going into your media feed, and that may fix your problem. I'm going to put a link in the end of this video to a couple of other videos that I've done, one of which where we test out every type of media that I could get my hands on, seeing what it's good at, what it works well at, what it doesn't work well at, as well as another video where we test out every type of blaster I could get my hands on. Give those things a watch. Those videos will hopefully kind of open your eyes and show you what media you need, what blaster you need, so hopefully you don't waste your money on something that's not right for your application. I want to conclude by letting you know that siphon blast cabinets are finicky creatures. There's a lot of different settings and things that can kind of tweak how well they work. You know, how much air you're drawing in down at the bottom, the size of the nozzle that you're using, the type of media, the size of the grit. All of that stuff affects everything. Be ready to do a little bit of testing to find that sweet spot where it's going to work for your application. The last thing that I'm going to say is I'm going to ask a favor of you. If you would, please click the thumbs up down below on YouTube. That lets YouTube know that the content of this video is good content, that it actually helps people, and as a result, it gets bumped up in the rankings on the search results instead of just disappearing into the abyss of YouTube, never to be seen or get views again. If you want to make sure that you don't miss any of my future videos, by all means, click subscribe if you would. Turn on notifications so that if I push a video out there, you don't miss it. If any of you guys have questions, feel free to ask them below down in the comments. I typically answer questions in the comments. I hope you guys found this video helpful. We appreciate y'all's business at redlinestens.com. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a good one.